Creepers left to rise, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to stimulate it. Spiders in the mirror and feel this can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spear drinkers, Cupid and the sound of her first chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe.
Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. Well, we're going to be starting another reading vlog. And this one is one I'm a little excited and a little nervous about. I shouldn't say I'm nervous, I'm not nervous about it, not really. So this is my diet soda, Diet Coke drink with sugar-free coconut, lime, and I added sugar-free strawberry just to kind of make it a little tropical, because sugar-free strawberry on its own in Coke is disgusting. But when you mix it with coconut, it kind of tastes a little tropically, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's fine. It's fine. So this week's reading vlog is going to be a verses reading vlog. When I first started my channel, this was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to do a lot of verses reading vlogs of this type of book versus this type of book. Like, I thought it would be so fun and dramatic. And I did too. I did my paranormal romance versus historical romance. That was the first time I had ever read A Hunger Like No Other. That vlog was fun. And then I also did a versus video reading the oldest historical romance versus the newest, which is When I Found the Rayquest, and I loved it. So both of those reading experiences brought me two books that I deeply loved and have become all-time favorites, except for the Jude Devereux one, which I didn't like, and a lot of people didn't like me for saying I didn't like it. So I'm sorry if you liked that, I just didn't like it, and I don't really feel like it holds up in today's culture. Anyway, this reading vlog is going to be traditionally published romance versus indie published romance. So I picked these two books because they were both published this year, and at one point they were both on the Goodreads awards. They were up for award. Since that time, I believe Dani Brown has gone ahead. Now, I dearly love Talia Hibbert, and I know that she publishes both traditionally and independently, and I've read both of her works, and I have loved them a lot. I have not read this one yet. I did read Chloe though, so I'm very excited about this. I just know I'm gonna love this. I really have no doubt, but I'm excited about this one. I really am interested to see, now that I've read more of her indie published works, how her traditionally published work differs from that. So I'm not necessarily going to be battling these two authors together. I'm just kind of curious to read a traditionally published romance and then read an indie published romance back to back and see what I think and what I take away as the main differences. Now I know that because these are different authors, that's not exactly accurate. It probably would have been more accurate to read one of Talia's indie pubbed ones, which now that I'm thinking about it would have been the way to go. However, I'm going to stick with Queen Move because they were both on the Goodreads award list at some point for romance. So yeah, I'm really interested to see if there's a difference on steaminess, on how they handle difficult subject matter, and I really want to see how romance-driven that they are. Like, that is something that I am specifically looking for. Like, I know this is going to be a very strong romance, but I really want to see, like, is it the whole, you know, like, anyway, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I hope that this experiment doesn't fail. This is the first clip I'm doing in this reading vlog. I'm just about to start this on audiobook, and then I will pick up Queen Move after I have finished this. So this will be a fun experiment. We'll see how things go. As far as contemporary romance goes, I prefer indie pubbed romance. Contemporary romance, in general, not always, but in general, But when it comes to historical romance, I prefer traditionally published. So, and that, honestly, again, that just comes down to the authors that I like, right? So that could vary too. Anyway, this isn't meant at all to throw shade to either publishing venue at all. This is just an experiment for me to sort of see, are there any big takeaways in difference between a traditionally published romance and an indie published romance? So, that's what's going to happen. I will check back in with you once I've made some progress in either of these books. All right, I just got this package from Hello Lovely Box. I am a rep for them now, you guys, and I'm so excited about it. I got this little package of bookmarks and stickers. I have a rep code now too. It saves you 15%. It's Crystal's Bookish Life 15. I'll have their shop linked down below, but I just wanted to show you these because I think these are some of my favorite bookmarks I've ever seen. I love books a waffle lot. This one is super cute too. A Gouda romance makes me melt. If I can't bring my book, I do not want to go. And this one. Pizza is my favorite love triangle. And this one I think is just made for me. Romance is my cup of tea. Isn't it adorable? I just love them. And then there's some stickers. I was just taking some Bookstagram pictures, so I thought I would share with you guys. Because they're so cute! And I love bookmarks and stickers. Look right here. Look right here. Can you look right there? Look right there. Kazi just wanted to say hi. Not really. He just wanted to see what was on my desk. Because I put you guys on my art desk. I put the camera on my art desk. That's where I set up my tripod and my camera. He's very interested in this. Because I'm here to give you an update. It's the day before Thanksgiving, and would you believe I haven't had time to make any of my drinks, so here we are with it. No, I can't make that. With a kombucha that I've tried before, so I don't know that I need to do a taste test for you. But anyway, it's the day before Thanksgiving. It is, I just got all my groceries delivered and put away. Hi, baby. He's being so sweet. He's being so chill. I'm just going to sit here and hold him. He's a precious baby. For a minute. How long was that? 10 seconds? Okay, can you get down? I love you. Anyway. Let's do a book update. Oh, we found your dragon! Okay, so I am reading Take a Hint, Dani Brown. I am 100 pages in, and this is a very short book. It's 350 pages. Thank you. Give. And I think that I will probably finish this tonight. It's... So let's talk about my first impressions. So the first impressions of the first chapter, I was blown away. Even though I know Talia Hibbert's writing and I know how she is just so witty and sharp and she doesn't pull any punches, like she is not afraid to have sexy talk, she is not afraid to really give her characters an attitude and be sassy, and I just am here for it. It's just such a delight to read one of her books. I bought this as soon as it came out, and it has literally been sitting on my shelf because I do this so often with books that are very hyped. I just hesitate getting to them, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because, like, that's my own little rebel persona not wanting to follow the crowd. Eye roll. Or if that's just me, like, being nervous about it not living up to the hype, and especially because I loved Chloe Brown so much. That book really, it just means so much to me. I love the chronic illness representation in it. I just love that book so much. I loved it. So I was a little nervous to pick this up, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And so I'm glad that I am finally picking it up because I love it so far. It's 100 pages in. There is a lot of tension in between them. So this is basically, so we have Dani, who is Chloe's sister, and she is a teacher. She's a teacher at this school, and Zafir is like a security guard at the school. And Dani has recently just sort of had a dry spell with love affairs. She has not had any romantic partners, and she is the type of woman who does not want a long-term commitment. She just wants some fun time with her partner. And so she is really feeling drawn towards Zafir. They have this adorable it's not our first meeting, but one of the scenes where they're together is just adorable, and it's just hot, and it was just fantastic when he rescues her from being trapped in an elevator, and I was swooning. It was just so great. And I just love the chemistry between them. I love everything about them. And so because he rescued her from this elevator it was like a drill for a gas leak, and she didn't know it was a drill, so she was like trying to hurry and get out, but because it was a drill, she got stuck in the elevator. She was in the elevator when it happened, and then everything shut down and she was stuck in there. Zafir came and rescued her, and it was very swoony and very dashing and very chivalrous and just really fantastic. And one of the students in the school catches that on video and posts it live, and it kind of goes viral. And Zafir is running this, it sounds like it's a charity organization that has to do with rugby. I'm not entirely sure what else that has to do with it. He's an ex-rugby player, was really, really famous and well known, it sounds like. And they're both kind of freaking out about this, and so they decide to let the internet believe that they are in a relationship and get the good publicity for it. But as they do that, they also sort of decide to have a slightly physical relationship, slightly so far. It's so fun, honestly. This book is just so much fun. I feel like Talia Hibbert, she is just a freaking queen. She is so good at writing. Like, you pick one of her books up and you get this feeling like this is someone who is a master at their craft. It doesn't even matter if you don't like her writing. I don't know why you wouldn't, but you can recognize that she is literally a masterful writer. And it's just so freaking enjoyable. I feel like when you get writers of this caliber that are so skillful at putting words together and creating a feeling and building up these characters and relationships, it's so easy to get swept up in the story. And so here's where I feel like the interesting thing comes when you talk about indie published versus traditionally published, because obviously with traditionally published authors, you have a gatekeeper there. You have someone who can decide if this person has the quality of writing that this particular publisher is looking for to publish them, right? And with indie pub, you don't have that at all. Anyone and everyone can indie publish a book. So indie publishing, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, but if you don't, indie publishing relies entirely on word of mouth. So basically, like I'm doing right here, people like me, book reviewers, people who read their books and talk about their books and share the love for them. And that's how they end up getting discovered. But there's no gatekeeper there with indie publishing. So there's no one determining, is this writing good quality enough to publish? It's just, if you write a book and you want to publish it, you can do it. And would you like to know that I have written a book and I self-published it? And no, it's not available, and it never will be because it's terrible. But for many years, all my life I wanted to be a writer, and I really decided about 10 years ago that I was going to do this seriously. And so I wrote 3 or 4 books. Actually, they were all just first draft. I did some editing to them, and I loved it, but at the same time I felt like in order for me to really be good and be published, it would mean I had to stop doing a lot of other things, and one of those was reading, and another one of those was art. And I just felt like I couldn't devote all of my time to writing when I had a big love for art too. So I have decided that writing isn't something that I want to do at this moment. Since I wrote those books, it was almost like when I wrote that book and had it published, self-published, I printed a copy for me. I still have it. Let me go grab it. But once I did that, then that desire for me to be an author was kind of gone, and I could just relax and just enjoy being a reader, which is really what I love to do. I have my business, my little sculpture, I call it a little sculpture business. It is very successful. It has been very successful from the moment I started it. I continuously sell out within minutes, and it has made me a wonderful income so that I can stay home with my kids. Anyway, that's not what this vlog is about. Let me show you my self-published book. I found it. I literally wrote this in 2010. I wrote this 10 years ago for NaNoWriMo. This was my NaNoWriMo book, and at the time, I'm not sure if they still do that. If you won NaNoWriMo and you completed a 50,000 word novel, you could have it published and sent to you. And so I did that. So this is my YA paranormal romance. It was about fairies, the Fae, which was before SJM did it. Anyway, that's one reason why I love fairy books, is just because it's been something that's always interesting to me. Anyway, this is my book I wrote. It's not available for public consumption, but I was so proud of this. And it was just it was one of those bucket list items that I wanted to do, where I wrote a book and I have it in my hands, and I let my dear sweet friend read it. And I said, you can't tell me if you like it or not, because she just was begging me to read it. I don't know why, because we were friends, but I recognized it wasn't good. Anyway, let's move on. So, Dani Brown. So, it's going to be difficult for me to really give an accurate presentation about what an indie published book, how it's different than a traditionally published book, because it really comes down to the author and how good they are. And I picked Kennedy Ryan, who I know is a wonderful writer. So, I don't really know where I'm going with this. But based so far on what I have read about this book, I can see, like, you can just see the way how clean the writing is and how it's so deftly edited, and how she is so precise with the words that she used, and how she's really allowing that to push the story forward and create so much romantic and sexual tension between these characters. It's just really masterful, I think. So I am really curious to see how this ends. I hope it doesn't end badly. I have seen a lot of my friends love this book, but some of them gave it 2 stars, and I'm like, how dare you? But I haven't read it. So anyway, I'm really, really enjoying it. It's just fantastic, and I just want to read it all the time. So now I'm going to go and prepare for Thanksgiving dinner. Today I'm making pies, stuffing, and cranberry sauce, and then tomorrow we'll do the rest of it. I do usually make Thanksgiving for me and my family, but we're being a little simpler this year because COVID. Anyway, I will check in with you a little bit later. I may put some clips in here of Thanksgiving prep. I'll see you in a bit.
Creepers left and rise, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to stimulate it. Spiders in the mirror and things can't be right. Back to the scene of a Friday night, to a blessed collision still frozen tight. Spear drinkers, Cupid, and the sound of earthless chime. And why did you argue? We're dreaming of those eyes, the best part of my life. And when we make love, babe, don't make a sound, the clock won't turn around.
Hello my friends, happy Thanksgiving! Today is Thanksgiving Day, and it is the afternoon, and I finished, take a hint, Dani Brown. I just barely finished this. I really loved this, honestly. I loved this so much. This, like, Zephyr is honestly pretty much a perfect hero. He is such a cinnamon roll, and he reads romance novels, and the reason he reads them is so beautiful and amazing. And Dani, the heroine, like, she kind of gave him some crap about it, and there's this section in the end that talks about why he reads them and what, I don't know. It was just, as a romance reader, I really loved that little extra in there. I thought it was beautiful and wonderful. And their romance, like, he loved Dani so much. I don't really think you could get more of a perfect man than Zephyr. Like, he was so perfect, and he loved her so much. And I loved watching Dani kind of soften up towards him and really discover how she loved and felt about him. Now, I'm giving this a 5 stars because I loved their romance so much, and I really loved how Talia built it up so slowly, but also, like, like, she built up their love story so slowly, but it didn't feel like a slow burn at all. Like, she's just such a great writer. Like, this is what, like, so good writing makes for good stories. Good writing makes for good love stories. Good writing makes for good romance. And Talia has such great writing in this that every single phrase that she uses, every single sentence has purpose, and it leads you towards the end of the moment. And like, I can't even tell you how many times there was a line in here that was just like a few words, just a few, like a sentence, but it conveyed so much emotion in there. Like, there was one line in particular, I'm trying to think of what it was, and I can't think of it. Hold on, let me go get my phone. Okay, so like, even, I went and looked it up and I tabbed a part I want to talk about later too. Like, even in their love scenes, like, there was one line in there in particular that said something about Zephyr's strength, and then it went on to say that he let her, like, just little things like that, saying, and Dani's whole point of that was that she knew that he cared for her because he let her do this thing. And I don't know, like, it was just, I love, and that's something that I always love, in particular in my romance novels, is like, I want there to be those little details, those little insights, those tiny little flashes of insight into the character where they realize this one little gesture that this person did means that they cared deeply for them. And I love that so much, and I felt like this book was just full of those little instances. And even though they didn't admit it out loud, like, they're in this fake relationship and it's starting to get out of hand because their feelings for each other are just so strong and powerful, and even though they didn't want to admit how much they felt for each other, you could tell that each character was having these little moments where they were in these little brief interactions or just a simple gesture that made them start to recognize and realize that this person loves me, and that's why they were doing all this. So I just love this book. I feel like this was so funny, and it was so smart and so quick-witted, and it was honestly just so much fun. And the whole way through, like, Dani doesn't do she doesn't do, like, commitment, right? She doesn't do long-term commitments, but you don't know why. So the whole way through, you just sort of know that that's what's going to be. That's what's going to be the thing that is the conflict in the end, right? And that's, if I could critique something, that would be the one thing I would critique, is that I wish that the reasoning for that, I wish we had known of that sooner, you know? I wish, because it definitely felt like it was kind of just slammed on you, and you you weren't really able to empathize with Dani for why she was holding back so much with Zephyr, because as us as the reader, and we get his perspective too, it's clear that he loves her and that he cares so much for her, and she's constantly questioning it and worrying and fearful, and you don't really know why, although obviously you kind of have an idea of why she's so afraid of commitment. So when it's finally revealed, it almost felt like, I wish we had known that earlier, you know? So that's the one thing that I could critique about this, is that I really don't like when that happens, when the conflict in the romance happens and it's just sort of thrown in there and you get to know it all at once. Like, I would like to have known that earlier, you know? But again, like, I just felt like I completely bought into their love story. This was fantastic. It was so good. I just loved this book. 5 stars. Fantastic. I can definitely see why she is such a force, and I really hope she wins the Goodreads award for the year. I know that it hasn't been decided yet, but I really hope that this book wins, because it deserves to win. This was a fantastic book. This makes me proud to be a romance reader, and I want to shove this at everyone and say, you know, this book does more than romance. The romance in this is so swoony, like, and it's also much steamy. Like, this, if anyone is critiquing traditionally published romance books for not being steamy enough, like, y'all ain't read Talia Hibbert, because whoa. But it was just such a rich and layered love story, but it also talks with so much, like, it talks about grief, and it talks about mental health, and I just feel like this covered so many important issues and all of how that might play into a relationship, and it was just such a delight, and it was beautiful, And now I have another book to add to my favorites of the year because this was just fantastic. Like I said, it had that one teeny tiny critique for me where I'm just sort of like, like everything else was just a masterpiece, and I sort of felt like, but it's not enough for me to dock any stars because it was still chef's kiss. Spicy meatball, fantastic. Just so good. Oh my gosh. It was fantastic. Oh, there was, so the thing I tabbed in here is when Talia is actually, so she's like an academic, she's trying to get her PhD, and she's meeting this woman who is another black academic, and she was kind of one who like shattered glass ceilings in her field, and so Dani has a chance to meet her, and they are talking for a minute, and this was towards the end, and the thing she says to Dani, which I just loved so much, I have to share with you. She says, major or minor, they're talking about doing things that make you happy, not just working yourself to death all the time, which I feel like in this day and age, we all can relate to that. I feel like we live in a time of workaholicism, right? Anyway, and she says, major or minor, if something keeps you human when pressure makes you feel like a volcano, hold on to that thing by whatever means necessary. I loved that so much. This book was just perfect. Like, Zafir is wonderful. I think I like this book actually probably more than Chloe Brown, and I loved Chloe Brown, but this book was just fantastic. And Zafir is also going to be on my list of favorite heroes for the year because he was just a perfect person. Like, oh my gosh. To the point to where when you knew like she didn't want to admit she had feelings for him, she was like, are you stupid? Like, don't let him go, you know? This was just fantastic. I loved it so much. So now I did write down what I said I wanted to critique these traditionally published and romance books for, and so let us see how it holds up. So the three criteria that I had were, how romance driven is it? Is romance the driving force of the whole story, or is it sort of like a backseat? I think oftentimes when books are traditionally published and they're labeled as romance and they're not necessarily romance, the romance definitely can take a backseat to where it's more about the character's journey. So with this book, I definitely feel like this gets a 5 out of 5 stars for romance is the driving force of this book. It is the whole story, and I loved that so much. This is also an Avon book, so Avon always does it right. And then the second one was, does it deal with difficult subject matter? And this one definitely did, and I was honestly a little bit worried that it was going to be a little heavier than I wanted. Like, I wanted the rom-com. I wanted a swoony rom-com, and I knew that it dealt with, like, anxiety, mental health, and grief, and I was really worried that that would take too much of a focus for the reading experience I was looking for. And I definitely feel like that, like, it dealt with difficult subject matter very, very well, very carefully, very sensitively, and in a way that I feel like people who deal with those issues could relate, especially the mental health issues. And it was just fantastic. Like, I'm not clinically diagnosed with anxiety. I have definitely gone through some very anxious periods. I have been diagnosed with depression, and so anytime I read a book that has mental health rep, I just am so happy to read that because I feel like it was just handled so well, and I love having more awareness brought to that. So I felt like that got a 5 out of 5 star rating for handling difficult subject matter. And then the third topic that I had was for steaminess, like how steamy was it? So 5 out of 5 flames, this gets a 5, 100%. Like, if you've read Talia Hibbert, you know, like, she is not afraid and she goes there. So this book was a perfect example of how I feel as a romance reader, how I feel traditionally published romance books should work. This was perfection. It was so wonderful. I loved it and adored it. I did choose a traditionally published book that wasn't a mass market, and I specifically did that because I feel like mass market traditionally published romances very much handle those issues perfectly for the most part, you know, especially in historicals. A lot of them handle that so well. But I feel like sometimes when we get traditionally published romance that are sort of like with the illustrated covers and they're in like the trade paperback size or bigger, we can kind of lose a little bit of that, you know? So I picked one specifically for that reason. I also wanted to pick one from the Goodreads list that I hadn't read. So I did this, so this is a long clip, but you guys, this was just so perfect. If you haven't read this yet, please read it. And I don't necessarily feel like you have to read Chloe before this. You could totally pick this up. If you haven't read Chloe Brown, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, which I happen to have right here. If you haven't read this book, this is the first one. It deals with sisters, if you didn't know. If you haven't read this, you don't have to read it before you read this. But they all stand on their own, and they're just so perfect. I mean, Talia Hibbert, she is a queen. She is a queen doing romance right. I just love her. I loved this book. It was perfection. It was so fantastic. Ugh. Have I gushed enough? Now I'm gonna go see why some of my friends gave this a 2-star or less. Like, how dare you? I'm just kidding. Everyone's feelings are valid, and if you didn't like this book, that's, you know, that's your opinion, that's your feelings, but for me, this was nearly perfect. Fantastic. Okay, so it's Thanksgiving. I have to go cook a turkey, and then I'm gonna start Queen Move. I actually have the audiobook for Queen Move, so maybe I will listen to that while I cook. And then I will come back with an update once I have started on that. Also, I do have some tea in my new cups. And I'm drinking it with the handle on the left so you can see it. Which feels weird, because I'm right-handed. This is like a cinnamon spice tea. And I don't know if I love it because it has licorice in it. Anyway, yeah, that's not a winner. It's the Tazo cinnamon spice. Strong licorice flavor, which I'm not particularly a fan of, but it's hot and it's warm and it's cinnamony, and you know, 'tis the season. Thanksgiving, apple pie, pumpkin pie. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving if you celebrated it, and I will see you in my next video clip.
Creepers left to rise, buzz like crazy. Everybody's trying to stem my leg.
Look what we have started. Who? Thank you, that's my hat. Yes, I know, it's different. I had to wear it to walk you because it's frigid outside. Okay, are you done? Goodbye. Okay. Let's talk about Queen Move. We have a lot to talk about. I have a lot to talk about. And you should talk to me in the comments about it if you've read this book. Okay, so I started Queen Move yesterday, and I have the audiobook and the ebook, so I'm kind of toggling back and forth, and which is helping me get through it really fast. I'm 40% of the way in, and thank you. I will keep this until I'm done talking. And I am really liking it. I feel like... So let me tell you what happened, okay? So I had the audiobook first. And, like, first off it says, published by Blue Box Press. And I was like, I thought this was indie published. Is this whole video concept a disaster? So I looked into it some more. Blue Box Press is basically... It's basically just a marketing department where they have authors on their team and then they market them, it sounds like, because this isn't published by Blue Box Press because it's still independently published. Like, you can't go into Barnes & Noble and buy Queen Move, you know? You can't even buy it on their website. The only way you can get a physical copy of Queen Move is through Amazon that I've seen so far. You can get the ebook version of it everywhere. So even when you look at the ebook version, it says in, you know, it's an indie ebook. So it is, that was a little misleading at first. So what Blue Box Press does is they are the gatekeeper of this branch of authors who they represent or who they've invited. So like they have Jennifer L. Armentrout too. Anyway, so that had me a little worried. I was still going to go through with this video, but it did have me a little worried that it wasn't an indie published book. And I know choosing an author like Kennedy Ryan, who is a very well-established author, she's a very experienced writer. She has won the Rita Award for, you know, romance, so she is a very highly regarded author, which is different than picking a book up that is an indie published book that is maybe someone who's newer to writing and has just recently published them. And the interesting thing about this is that right before I started this video, I just barely finished reading an indie pubbed book that was, I'm not going to talk about right now, it will be in my wrap up, that I did end up liking. From the moment I started reading that book, I'll tell you what it is. It was Dear Ava. And I did end up liking that book. I gave it 4 stars. But there was a long time in that book where I just had the feeling like Jessin from Jessin Reads Romance. I just watched her vlog about historical romance, which was great. You should go watch it if you haven't watched it yet. But she was saying how when she was reading Her Night with the Duke, like it gave her that first draft feeling, the dialogue did. And while I was reading Dear Ava, I very much had that same feeling of, this feels like a first, not always, but there were parts of Dear Ava that just read very first draft like, and like, that's not bad. So anyway, this conversation has gone off the rails. Let's get back to Queen Move. The point was just that I thought I think I've talked about my point. Okay, so do I like Queen Move so far? I do like it. I like it. I feel like from the beginning of this book, it reminds me of just like this really rich drama that I'm watching, you know, like this, I could see this being like a series, like a TV series. It just reminds me of a very richly detailed, with all these complex layers for all the characters and the family relationships and all of the different issues, because this book deals with so many social issues. And remember, that was one of my criteria, was to see how it handles like important, serious issues. This book has quite a lot of them. Like, it has a lot of talk about racism and politics and, you know, different family dynamics. There's grief. There's also infertility talk. And it's just really, honestly, a very, very well done book. It's just honestly masterfully put together. Queen Move is just a beautifully epic family saga. That's what it feels like to me. It feels like a really epic family saga. And I like that a lot. And there is the romance in this is very, it's there, and you can tell that it's going to be like the end game, but it's very like slow boil, right? The romance itself is almost subtle. Like, it's definitely not as present or as fast as Dani Brown was. And I kind of wish we had a little bit more of that. Now, this is a really interesting story. I don't think I even talked about what this is about. So Queen Move follows Ezra and Kimba, and the story starts out and they're children, you know, and they were best friends growing up, and then they had something happen that pulled their families apart, and Ezra moved away. Many, many years later, when they're in their 30s, as Ezra comes back to Kimba's father's funeral, and they see each other for a little while. Kimba sees that Ezra has a child and what she thinks is a wife, and so instantly she just says, okay, he's totally off limits, you know, because when they were separated, they were in like 9th grade, and they started to have like crushes and feelings for each other, but obviously they were still little kids, you know. But that basis of best friends to start of having a crush in their middle school years is what leads them to, when they meet again, just feeling all of that come back to them. So then they don't end up seeing each other for quite a few years later. At this point, Kimba is 37, which honestly I really enjoy. Like, I love, love, love reading about this age group, you know, like reading about women in their 30s, reading about romances in their 30s, like, because I am in my 30s, like, maybe. I find that just so interesting because there's so much more that I can relate to, because, you know, it usually has to deal with, you know, if they want children, they're thinking about, you know, finding someone that they want to have children with, that they want to have a family with, but they're also at the point where their career is at a level where it's a really, you know, like, they're really doing well in their career, and they have all that other challenges, and I don't know, I just feel like that's just something that I really love. This age group is there's so many different intricacies that you can focus on their life that really adds so much to the story, so I'm really, really liking that. At this point, the steam level is 0. There's 0 steam, but that's okay, because I know that it's going to get there. So the romance at this point is very, very, very low. Like, it's a simmer. Like, it's a really slow simmer. The main point of this plot is really dealing with Kimba's life and Ezra's life and everything that has happened to them in the time they've been separated and the choices that they have to make right now, because both of them are at a stage in their life where they have to make some choices that are going to affect their entire life from this point out. You know, like Ezra is... I won't go into it because it will spoil it, but... yeah, so I really, really love the way that this is handled. I think it's just beautifully written, and I am very excited to see what happens with these characters. It is a totally different vibe than Dani Brown. Like, Dani Brown was a complete sexy rom-com, fun, good time, like sparks, instant sparks. The minute I read about... oh my heck, I forgot his name again. Zafir. I was like completely like... okay, you've just moved up to the top spot on my heroes list, you know? And at this point with Ezra, I sort of feel like I'm not completely sold on him as a hero, you know? And I know I'm 40% in, but that's almost halfway. And I don't really feel like I know a lot about him. I feel like I know Kimba quite well, but for Ezra, I'm sort of like, I don't know. I don't know about him. So anyway, that is... what I think of it so far. I am really, I don't know, just very, very impressed with her writing, with the way that this whole story is set up is just so rich. Like, it's just such a richly layered story with so many different things that these people are dealing with, and it's just really, really good. I want the swoon factor. I just haven't got that yet, but I think I will get it soon. I have a feeling like things are going to start to heat up here pretty soon. So, hi. That's what's happening now. It's the day after Thanksgiving. I have done some online shopping. And, yeah, gonna do some work. And then listen to this audiobook as much as possible. So, I hope to finish this today. I think that's probably doable. And then I'll let you know. I'll let you know when I get to the... to the swoon factor.
My hourglass, my calloused hands, my furrowed brow in all my plans. I'm coming to my own, I'm coming to my own. The distance I have traveled, the wall that
So that was me just starting my last month in this training cycle, increased my weight, increased my reps, 4x4, 215 pounds. Felt really good, so now I'm going to give you an update on Queen Move because I've been listening to it all day. I am 75-ish% of the way done, so I'm definitely going to finish this today. And I'm really conflicted about this because I really love Kennedy's writing. I love her writing. She's so great at just like creating a scene and creating a feeling and really building up the drama, and really I love how there's so much of this talks about like Black culture, and I really love the diversity of the characters, and it feels very real. I love the characters are great. I really love Kimba especially. She's a really strong woman. She really has built her career and she knows what she wants and she's not afraid to go out and take it. She's very brave. She's very, you know, like very strong. I really like her a lot. The thing that I am not sold on is that they are in love. I'm not sold on their love story. This feels very much driven by lust and attraction, which is a little bit, I don't ever really love that. And especially when it's I don't love that when it's presented as they have this big love story, you know? Because we do see them as kids, and then we see them 30-ish years later, so they're 13 when they're separated and they had this great friendship and they just started to feel like they were getting a crush. But then you see them now and, you know, they're 37. It just feels hard for me to believe that from 13 to 37, they have nursed these feelings of great love for each other, you know? I just am not feeling it. I'm just not feeling the love. There are times when I felt like that connection, but overall, I'm just not convinced that this is a love match at this point, instead of just they've both been sexually frustrated and now they are with this person who they've had this attraction for these many years, you know? So, for that reason, I'm not sold on the love story. It's definitely steamy. It's been steamy since I've last updated you, but I don't feel the love, and I really want to. I want to feel that emotion, and I just am not getting that. Another reason I'm not getting that is because I feel like I don't really know Ezra very well. I don't really understand how he feels about Kimba. I don't feel like I am connecting with him as a hero. He's not necessarily a hero that I am like, wow. And I feel like maybe that's amplified because I just finished Take a Hint, Dani Brown, and Zafir was such a powerfully strong hero that I connected with right away. And I was like, yeah, this guy, there is something exceptional about this guy. And I just don't feel that with Ezra. I have 30% less left. I really want to love this so much. At this point, I don't know. So, I'm gonna finish it, and then I'll come back with one final update for my thoughts on this. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the final clip in this reading vlog. So, I did finish Queen Move last night, and I did really like this one. Honestly, there was so much to love about this. I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I'm debating between, I think it's a solid 4-star read for me. And let me tell you what I loved about it. The thing I really loved about it the most was seeing Kimba. I feel like Kimba was just a fantastic female character. She was so strong, and she was just in so much control, but you also got to see a little bit of her vulnerability, and I really loved how powerful she was, how successful she was in her career. I just loved her as a character. I loved seeing a powerful black woman have such a wonderful story. I really loved that about her. I loved the political storyline in this. I loved the family dynamics. I loved Kimba's mom. I loved the depth and the richness. This book felt like just a really well drawn out epic family drama to me. But the reason that I decided to give this 4 out of 5 stars instead of this, the reason this didn't get a full 5 stars for me was just because I didn't feel the romance in this. I didn't feel the love story. I definitely felt the physical attraction, and I felt that they did have a connection. It shows you both sides of their relationship, but it shows you when they're children growing up to their best friends. They're separated when they're 13. And then they don't see each other again until they're 37. And it just felt like that is a really large amount of time. Very large amount of time. And I have a 12-year-old. Like, I've raised kids. My older two, they were 13, you know, and I'm not discrediting that you can have strong emotional connections, but I am really doubting the validity in having a soulmate type of love at 13. I just didn't buy it at all. I didn't. And I don't think that they're saying they had that when they were 13, but you don't get to see them fall in love later on. When you meet them at 37, there really isn't any romantic buildup. There's no finding out about each other, who they are as adults now. There's none of that falling in love part, really. It's almost like it's established that they are in love, you know? And I didn't like that. That was the reason I'm giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I felt like it was a beautifully well done book. I felt like it dealt with some really important issues. So my 3 criteria about this were, does it deal with important issues? It really, really does. Like, a lot of them. Like, there were so many things that these characters were dealing with, and it was just, but it was all handled really well, you know? Kennedy Ryan handled it just perfectly. It didn't ever feel melodramatic, it didn't feel overdramatic, which I feel like it sometimes can, you know? It just was lacking on that emotional connection. I didn't feel like I didn't feel that they were in love. There was no build up to how they fell in love as adults. And there was a lot of build up to how they felt physically attracted to each other. A lot of that, but there wasn't the falling in love aspect of it that I wanted. And so for that reason, I give it a 4 out of 5, which honestly really kind of disappoints me and breaks my heart because I feel like this was a nearly perfect book. It was just so beautifully put together, but it is a romance book, and so for that element to not be there, it was just disappointing. So 4 out of 5 stars. I did really like it. It didn't hold back on the steam. There was plenty of steam. It didn't hold back on the serious issues. The romance in this book was the focal point of the plot, but at times it did feel like it took a back seat as they were figuring out all of the other storylines and plot threads and drama in their lives. And so that was just a little bit lacking, which honestly kind of surprised me a little bit. I definitely feel like Dani Brown was just fully about the romance, and I loved that. So, like, I'm not judging an indie romance book versus a traditionally published book, although I know that's like what the whole theme of this vlog, but I didn't mean to judge them against each other because they're such different writers that you really can't put them in a battle towards each other. And I feel like the romance genre as a whole is filled with so many different types of romance books, and I love that. And I don't know. So I really enjoyed Queen Move. I was really wishing it had more of an emotional connection in the romance, and I just feel like if we had seen them, if they had separated when they were 16 and they had more of a chance to feel that romantic love, I would have bought into this a lot better. But 13 is just too young, and they had just started, like, to feel like maybe they had a crush on each other, and then to go from there to when they're 37, that's a whole lot of life you've experienced in that time, you know? And I would expect that there would be some falling in love with each other and not just relying on, this is who I knew my whole life until I was 13, you know? But, yeah, I don't want to criticize it too harshly because I was super impressed with it. But I'm trying to explain this is why it didn't hit for me in the romance department, and that's why. So, it's been interesting. I feel like this was, honestly, it would have been a great contender for the Goodreads Awards, probably a million times better than a lot of the ones that made it to the finals. I wish Queen Move had been in there because it was super good. It was really great. But I am still holding out hope that Dani Brown wins. This book was fantastic. For me, this was almost perfect. Just fantastic. Loved it so much. You've heard my thoughts about that. So, there we go. Those are my thoughts on the indie and traditional romance I read this week. Really enjoyed them both. I recommend them both, totally. It's just, for me, like that's what if I don't get that emotional connection, I don't really care about anything else. If I don't get that emotional connection, I do not care about any kind of steam. I just don't. That's not the kind of reader that I am. I want the emotional connection. That's what I want first and foremost. I want to see them falling in love. I want to feel that they love each other, you know? And I didn't really feel that with Queen Move. I did definitely feel that with Dani Brown. I just loved it. So anyway, there we go. Those are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed watching this reading vlog. And thank you so much for watching if you got this far. I know this was a super long one and I had a lot of rambly thoughts, although I will try and edit them out. I haven't edited them at this point, so we'll see how well I do. But thanks so much for watching. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving if you celebrated it, and I'll see you in my next video.